guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of the Fishing Teacher, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel and spending some of your day with me. Today we're going to be talking about the importance of rod length, guys. Not the rod action, but the length of the rod. When people talk about rods, you hear them talking about like it's a medium action rod or a medium heavy, if it's a fast taper, slow taper. Those are just terms, but I want to talk about the importance of different type of lengths that give you the ability to do different things with the lure. Now, the rod length that you have has a ton to do with like your action you put on the bait, hook sets, fish fighting ability, all that stuff. So we're going to go over that into detail. And I sort of want to go over some of the most popular rod lengths, talk a little bit about the best lures and techniques that work for that particular length. So we're going to get into that in today's video. Also, guys, I will link, I'll put my Megabass rod link in the description of the video here. Megabass has a bunch of different rods at different price points, some of the highest quality rods you'll ever see, the attention to detail on like the handles, the titanium guides, the materials, second to none. So if you guys would like to get a Megabass rod through my Tackle Warehouse link, you guys can use that link. That's much appreciated. And also, guys, thank you very much for everybody that's taken time to hit that subscribe button here to the Fishing Teacher. Really appreciate that. If you want to support the channel in a way that's free and easy to do so, subscribe, like the videos, share the videos, comment on the videos. That all really helps out. Okay, rod length and what you need to do with them. Now, one of the things that you have noticed if you bass fish for a long time is rods have gotten progressively longer. Back when I started fishing a lot, back in the 1970s, most of the rods that we had were under 6 feet long. I mean, a 5 to 5.5 foot rod was normal, and a 5.5 foot rod was sort of like the standard that everybody used. You know, with a the pistol grip handle. You know, the long handles came out pretty shortly after the 70s, but a lot of people used 5.5 foot rod with a pistol grip handle, which was not a good rod length. It's like there's not a lot of stuff that you can do with the 5.5 foot rod. So I want to talk about the rod lengths that I use because I don't use a lot of different lengths, but I do use several. I want to go over the rods that I use and the rod lengths. Now, the first rod length I want to talk about the shortest ones, and I'll go up to the longer one. The first one is a 6 foot 11 inch. I use a 6 foot 11 inch in both the Megabass spinning rod and the Megabass bait casters. Now, the 6 foot 11 inch rod is probably the best length for a spinning rod, because when you're talking about a 6 foot 11 length, it allows you, the length of the rod being shorter than 7 feet, it allows you to put wrist action on a lure, on a spinning outfit that you can't really do with a 7 footer. It allows you to shake that bait a little bit better than you could with a longer rod. It's just a little bit more user friendly. Most spinning rods are going to be in the range between 6.5 to 7 feet. And I use the 6 foot 11. This is that Megabass whip snake here, but they also have one called an Addermine. But the 6 foot 11 is a really good all around rod length for most any spinning rod applications. I just really like that. But moreover, let's talk about the bait caster, guys. 6 foot 11 inch bait cast rod is a really good rod for a lot of different things. First of all, when you're talking about lures that you have to manipulate, in other words, you have to twitch your wrist like that, like working a Zara spook or something, or working a jerk bait, or anything that you have to shake around and move around a lot, a 6 foot 11 inch rod is an excellent choice for that, because it allows you to have that liveliness. If you have a rod that's over 6 foot 11, it's very difficult to put quick snaps on a rod, because simply the length of the rod's a little bit heavier. You got a lot more material to move. So a 6.5 is a really good bait for like fishing any type of topwater that you're walking, like a chugger, a prop bait, a walking topwater, anything that you have to use your wrist to put a movement on. The same is like with the jerk bait. I don't use a jerk bait on a bait caster. I do on the spinning rod, but if you do use a bait caster for a jerk bait, it's the same thing. A 6 foot 11 is a good, length for that. This is the Megabass 110 Special right here, which is a 6 foot 11 inch rod. So that's the primary thing that I use, the 6 foot 11 inch. Now the other time that I'll use a 6 foot 11 is like with a smaller crankbait, if I'm trying to make shorter casts. Anytime that you're using a shorter rod, you can make those quick wrist roll casts a little bit. A longer rod a lot of times requires two hands, but a shorter rod like this, you can make those little pitches like that, the little sidearm cast, like with a spinnerbait or something next to like a lay down tree, just a little more accurate. And also, if you happen to be a little bit shorter in stature, say that you're, 5.5 foot tall, or maybe you're shorter than even 5.5 foot tall, sometimes a shorter rod is a better tool for you guys as far as to manipulate and handle the baits that you're using. Okay, the next rod length that I use when I go up above 6'11" is a 7 foot 2 inch rod. The rod that I use at 7.2 most of the time is that Megabass Perfect Pitch rod. It's 7 foot 2 inches long. A 7 foot 2 inch long rod is going to allow you to do some different things. Now, once you go to 7 foot 2, you don't have that freedom of the wrist to put the action on. So on a 7 foot 2 rod, I'm going more to straight retrieves like that. And a 7 foot 2 rod, also I'm looking for a little bit more power, because traditionally 7 foot 2 rod, it's instead of being like a medium action on a 6'11", it's usually some type of a medium heavy. So a 7.2 rod is going to be a good bait for me to fish like a finesse jig, something like that, maybe a swim bait, maybe a little bit bigger crankbait, maybe a spinner bait, maybe a chatterbait, something like that. Something that I need to cast with two hands, and I need a little bit more power, but I'm reeling the bait like this. I'm not like jerking the bait like that, because it's hard to do with that 7.2, but it's a bait like a spinner bait that I'm just reeling, or the chatterbait, or swim bait, or I'm working that jig like that, or maybe fishing a bigger square bill crankbait where I'm just reeling. Now, what happens as you go to a longer rod, one of the most important aspects of a longer rod is your ability to make a longer cast and to fight the fish better. So once I go to a rod above 7 foot 2, there's two other rod lengths I use. One is a 7 foot, like a 7.5 foot flipping stick, something like that, 7 foot 11 flipping stick, and a 7 foot 11, sort of like a medium action cranking rod. There's two that I use. It's called the Megabass Alkalies flipping stick, which is 7'11", and then I'll use this one called the Megabass Launcher, which is 7'11", and it's sort of like a medium tip. And both of those, rods are for a little bit bigger baits, like flipping and pitching. The launcher rod I'll use for big crankbait, stuff like that, maybe even chatterbaits. But here's the advantage as you go up into length. If you try to make, the longest cast you can with a 6 foot 11 rod, your cast length is going to be limited just because of the trajectory and the power on the downswing. But if you have like a 7.5 foot rod, you got a lot more leverage to make a super long cast with that. And then with the longer rod, let's say for example, I've got a 7 foot 11 inch rod. If I make a long cast like that, like with the jig way out there, and I get a bite, when I set the hook on a 7 foot 11 inch rod, I'm going to have a lot more line come with me. It's going to allow me to take up more line with that longer rod, a lot more than what I could with a 6 foot 11. It's like if I set the hook with a 6 foot 11 like this versus setting the hook with a 7 foot 11, I'm talking about generating probably 25% more distance on the hook set just from the length of the rod. So that's super, super important in terms of, getting that hook and that fish. Also, another thing with it is when you fish a longer rod, you have more control over the fish. So let's say, for example, I'm pitching and flipping in there. I got my 7 foot 11. When I set the hook on that fish, I've taken up more line on the hook set, but then once I've got the fish on, I've got more power and I got more leverage to control that fish and get that fish's head turned in my direction. So that's another advantage of the little bit longer rod with it. But the main thing that you have to realize is there's an advantage and a disadvantages of a short rod and a long rod. The advantages of the shorter rod is that you can finesse stuff out. You have better feel. You can impart better action on a lure, make a lure look a little bit more realistic. And the longer rods, you're going to lose that ability to create that finessey feel, but you're going to have the distance and the power that sometimes is needed with some lure categories. Now, another thing, like if you look through the link, I put in my link in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of the Megabass rods, you're going to notice a lot of different rod lengths. They have rods everywhere between 6 feet up into over 8 foot. 7'5", 7'11", 7'10", 8 feet, all that type of deal. Yeah, you can use every one of those. I'm just trying to give you guys sort of to simplify a little bit. In my opinion, if you want to simplify your fishing and you don't want to have every rod that a company makes, get you a 6'11", get you a 7'2", and get you something like a 7'11". Those 3 rod lengths are going to cover most any type of situation that you're going to have. Now, if you want to be really, really like detailed, rods are just like a set of golf clubs. In golf, you know, you have 3 or 4 different woods. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pitching wedge, sand wedge irons in your bag. You've got a club for every single situation. And you can do the same thing with your fishing rods. I mean, if you have unlimited money and unlimited resources, yeah, I would say get every single length of rod that you could have, because every single length of rod would have a lure category specific to that one rod length. But for most guys, you know, including myself, we're all on a budget and we want to simplify. That's my best suggestions. I would suggest guys going into that Megabass rod length, either going into the Levante or the Destroyer line, get you a 6'11", get you a 7'2", get you a 7'11", call it good, go fishing, man. I think that's going to take care of it all. So anyway, hope it helps out. We'll talk later, guys.